It's good, folks. We're watching three true food delivery horror stories by Ripshy. Let's check it out. Mm.
I worked for DoorDash as a delivery driver for a short period of time. I made a little bit more money delivering food for them than I did at my first job, plus I enjoyed it more. I really liked how I could put together my own work schedule and work when I wanted. I was a full-time college student, so that was particularly why it was so much more convenient to me than a traditional part-time job. It did come with its consequences, though. One being this creepy guy I ran into that I'm about to tell you about. And two, how I used to have to make deliveries late at night, which was a horror story on its own. I wasn't scared. I had just heard horror stories about delivery drivers over the years getting mugged or hurt, or even disappearing after working late at night. So sometimes I would be on edge if I had to deliver in a sketchy or unfamiliar area. Shit, sometimes I had to deliver to houses that were in the middle of nowhere, like Serial Killer Central. Around 5 p.m., I was finishing up with my studies and I decided to take a rest. I laid in bed for a bit while I watched TV and I fell asleep for a few. I woke up after a short 30 minutes and I looked at my phone and I realized that I fell asleep. So I got up, I took a shower, and I ate something real quick, and then off I went to work. It was around 6:30 p.m. after I dropped my first delivery off. I was on track to being able to do 8 or so more deliveries. That would require me working late into the night. Sometimes I could get 2 deliveries done per hour, but on average most deliveries took me around 45 minutes to complete. All the way from driving to the restaurant, then waiting for the food, and of course driving to the customer's drop-off location. This meant that most nights I would easily be out until 12 or 1 a.m., sometimes even later. The only restaurants in my area that were open that late were McDonald's, Taco Bell, and this one diner in town. They were all open 24/7 and a huge hotspot for DoorDash at night. I would get constant orders from the late night stoners that would stay up in the middle of the night and wanted a quick and convenient snack. I would say around 11ish after I picked up the order for the customer, which was probably my 4th or 5th delivery. The customer messaged me out of the blue, which wasn't unusual, but his message was what got to me. I still remember his name was Michael. He told me that address might not show up on maps, and that he doesn't live there at the house, and that he was homeless and he just needed an address to use to get the food. He said he thought the house was vacant. I probably should have contacted DoorDash and then had them drop the order for me. Right then and there. But in the moment I didn't, and I don't know why. I just didn't. Anyways, he told me to call him if I had an issue with finding the place. Thought his request was really weird and strange, but I felt like I had to help him get his food. If he really was a homeless man, how did he have $40 for DoorDash? These were the questions I asked myself, but still for some reason my brain convinced me to go through with the order. As I turned down the street of the house he was supposedly on, I quickly realized just how off-grid we were, and the further I went down the road, the more narrow the road became. It seemed like it was getting darker by the second. As I continued driving, I started to get an even more weird feeling, because at this point I was practically in a secluded area. The houses were far and few in between, and it was mostly fields and trees. That was when I received another text message from Michael. It read, "Hey, I saw you. Turn around. You drove past me, silly goose." I pulled into the next driveway, turned around, and texted back saying I didn't see him. But my message wouldn't go through due to the fact that I lost service on my phone. But it wasn't long before I saw a dark figure up ahead. It had to be him. So I started driving towards him, and he flagged me down. Next thing you know, I handed him his food, and there he was standing directly at my driver's side window, which made me really uncomfortable. It made me even more uncomfortable that he was wearing some type of elastic ski mask. What the hell? I asked if he was Michael, and he said yes. I honestly didn't know if it was really him, but chances were that it was. I didn't even care if it was him though. I just wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. As I was just about to start pulling off and started to roll up the window, he started to pull on the door handle, but luckily I had it locked.
Oh,
He then
that's
tried to get
not.
his hand in the window, but it was rolled up high enough to where he couldn't do anything, like grab me or the lock. And that's when I saw he had a syringe in his hand.
Yo.
He made a final attempt at breaking in by trying to smash the glass window open, but it didn't work well. He cracked the window a little bit, but I managed to pull away before he could take another swing, which potentially saved my life. That was my creepy encounter while door dashing. I reported it to DoorDash, and they said they would ban him from using the app for good.
This shit's
But I
wild.
have a feeling that's not going to stop him from trying Uber Eats, I'm sure, if he hasn't already anyways. He should probably be blacklisted entirely from the internet, but I'm not sure that's even possible. I'm not sure what he was trying to do.
Oh, same problem. Car problem.
One night I was out doing DoorDash, and I got an order that needed to be delivered in a pretty sketchy part of town. As much as I hated those orders, because for one thing, safety was a huge issue, but also a lot of the times the customers in these areas didn't tip, which quite honestly makes it feel less than worth it. But in reality, I kind of had to accept the order, as I had a family to feed and it was a slow night. I wasn't getting many orders on this night, so I had to do what I had to do. I actually carry a handgun that of course is 100% legal, but I didn't have it on me that night, which was unfortunate and made me feel less safe. I was having trouble finding the house, and so I had to message the customer. The guy was kind of giving me a hard time and not being very helpful at all, so eventually, after having him call me every name in the book, I called DoorDash and I canceled the order as I told them I didn't feel safe. They understood and they canceled the order. But in the meantime, I was put on hold for probably a good 10 minutes with DoorDash as I was trying to cancel the order. About halfway through the call, I was sitting in my parked car. I noticed a car behind me, probably about 6 houses away, turn on the headlights and it was pointed at me, practically blinding me.
Vaccine.
I didn't think anything of it until I started to drive away and they followed behind. Thought maybe it was just a coincidence. But after they made 3 or 4 of the same turns that I did, I started to get this icky feeling inside. I knew I was being followed now, and I really knew after about 4 or 5 more turns when they were still tailing my ass.
What happened?
I called the police and they told me to keep driving. And they also told me to go to a public area and wait for them to show up, so I did. I parked at a local Walmart like prompted to, and of course, he was still right behind me, until eventually he pulled up into the parking spot right next to me. The man got out of his car and he demanded his food. I told him that if he backed away, I would give it to him, but this made him furious. I made it clear to him that he was making me uncomfortable, but he clearly didn't give a shit. Within seconds, the police pulled up right next to us, thankfully, and detained the man and started to question us both. I gave them my side of the story, and the man gave his pathetic excuse for a sob story, but luckily they weren't believing him. I was only 18 years old at the time, and a very skinny, not so tall of a guy. And this guy was mid-40s easily, and completely jacked beyond belief. He was also at least 6'2", I would say. He was a monster compared to me, so I think the police were able to empathize with why I was uncomfortable, especially after showing them the text that he sent me. What's even crazier is what happened next. The cops decided to place him under arrest for harassing me, and the man completely lost it. He started threatening the police, and even though he was detained and in handcuffs, the 3 officers still struggled to put him in the back of the car. He ended up with more charges as well, such as obstructing a police officer, and they also found meth in his pocket, so that right there was a felony drug charge. And apparently he was literally on parole and was in prison before this for like 15 years or something, and it only had been out for like 6 months. This guy literally just threw the rest of his pathetic life away for some stupid $6 cheeseburger. All because he wanted to cuss me out and make me feel uncomfortable, as I just needed help finding the house. The man obviously has issues, and I'm glad he's back in prison. It's probably where he belongs. It's a good thing everything happened the way it did, because now we have one less loser, crazy unhinged human roaming the streets. That's the way it needs to be, if you ask me. Justice was served. I used to deliver food on the weekends for DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats for some extra money when I was able to find the motivation. I used to run all 3 apps simultaneously, as it really helped me stay more efficient at making the most money, as I had more orders I could pick and choose from. One night I was delivering, it had to have been a Saturday. I got an order from my DoorDash app for a delivery that said it was only like 10 miles away and it was an $11 order, which was really good for my area. So I just accepted it without thinking much. It was rather dark when I got there, so when I pulled into the driveway, I parked my car at the end, and I left my car's headlights on to help me see. I knocked on the door and I waited for the customer. On the DoorDash app, you can request to have it hand-delivered or dropped off at your door. And this particular order wanted it handed to them. I waited for a second and I gave the door another polite but slightly louder knock than my first attempt. And almost right as I did that, I received a message from the customer, and they were politely asking if I could meet them around back to hand them their order. Right away, I got a horrible feeling about that, but I didn't know what else I could do. So I ended up doing the stupidest thing possible. I went against my gut. I just texted him back and I said okay. I started walking towards the back, and it was even darker back there than it was in the front. I started to feel some adrenaline and some intense anxiety, so I decided to turn back around. Something made me turn around. It was like I didn't even have an option. It was so dark that I couldn't even see my own hand, right in front of my face. So I noped the hell out of there and I did a light jog back to my car. As I was approaching my car, I heard a man from behind me in the backyard say, "Hey, wait, I'm right down here, come back." I didn't even turn around to look. I just got into my car and I drove off. It was a good thing that I did, because as I was leaving, I saw 3 more grown men run out of the bushes, and all of them were wearing masks. I couldn't even believe what was going on. It was a miracle that I decided to turn around when I did. Could you imagine what would have happened if I didn't? Or if I would have stayed for even just another second? I more than likely wouldn't be here right now to tell this story. Of course, I called the police, and I even reported it to DoorDash. I was eager to hear all about what the cops had to say, as I waited for days for them to get back with me. But deep down, I knew more than likely they were going to be gone by the time the police showed up, and I was right. And since I never got a good look at their face, and since they were all wearing masks, I was screwed when it came to finding them. There weren't even any cars in the driveway either, so I pretty much had nothing to go off of. The only hope I had was DoorDash. DoorDash had to have one of their credit card numbers saved, right? Because or how else would they have been able to place the order? Yeah, well, they weren't much of any help either. They pretty much told me to piss off when I asked for answers.
Damn, that sucks.
That house was vacant, by the way. Nobody lives there at all, and it's been that way for almost a decade.
What the fuck?
That explains why it was so dark and creepy looking. It would make for the perfect place to commit a crime like abducting a young girl like myself, or just about anything else I can imagine. I still get goosebumps when I think back to this story, and I hope this opens up anyone's eyes who needs to hear this, because this type of thing can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time.
For real.
All you can do is be prepared and listen to your gut, and take my painful mistake as a hard life lesson like I had to.
Yeah. No, you just gotta be careful, you know? Well, enough. Thanks for watching. Peace out.